tracking of students is the grouping or segregation of students through an entire student population into classes according to their overall achievement. Students would attend classes with only those who are academically in the same place. Some of us may wonder where the tracking of students originated or how it came about. The practice, now known as tracking, was a well thought out response to entry of large students of immigrants into the U.S. in the early 20th century. The schools throughout this process was an efficient way of educating the newly diverse student population, according to Maureen Healing. In earlier days, junior high and high school students were assigned to academic, general, or vocational tracks. According to Valerie Houghton, the students who were above average were placed into groups or given a rigorous education with the goal of training students to be the white-collar labor of the workforce, which means they would be in the manager position, for example. Typically, one of the students are on a particular track, they stay on track, and they take the course sequence that are prescribed for the track. In research done in 1986 to 1999 by Hallinan, her colleagues and she performed studies suggesting that students assigned to low ability groups scored lower on standardized tests than if they were placed in mixed ability or high ability groups. Critics, though, argued that tracking created a greater learning opportunity for high performance students. Tracking's opponents alleged that students in lower tracks often had the weakest teachers in school, an unchallenging curriculum, few academic roles, and low social status. A well-known episode in the detracking movement occurred in California and Massachusetts in the early 1990s, according to Hillian. She stated that officials in both states ordered that tracking in middle schools must be eliminated or reduced. During the tracking war, state reform meets school policies. Brookings Institution scholar Tom Lovelace stated that because these schools had a great deal of autonomy or independence, they could regulate these newfound rules in ways that were consistent with local preferences. Therefore, the detracking movement could not claim a victory. Another example of history of tracking would be the education being driven by officials trying to fit people in their probable destinies, according to Jim Stone, the director of the National Research Center for Career and Technical Education. Kids from poor families were tracked off into becoming their worker bees. Others were tracked off to go to universities or intelligent. We would today call that tracking. In modern day tracking systems, students were assigned to the same course, although expectations or curriculum varies. Some are more rigorous and some are less rigorous. Its primary goal is to allow students the opportunity to excel academically. In some schools, students start tracking at kindergarten with a screening, testing their abilities where they should be placed in the educational system. The early achievement tests are designed to measure the children's ability to determine where they're tracked for the 12 years of schooling, according to Burris and Garrity. In other schools, it is the teacher's decision to choose the track that the child gets on, usually depending on grades, motivation, or teacher recommendation. Sometimes, though, the schools allow the parents and the students themselves to choose their own track. For example, the older students, giving them the choice to take dual credit classes provided they will maintain a certain grade throughout the time in their class. There are different forms of tracking systems. There are ability grouping systems in which the students are assigned classes based on their abilities within the subject. There are also leveling systems in which the students study the same curriculum but first have to pass the prerequisite. In the leveling system, a course may be taught to high-achieving 8th graders and low-achieving 10th graders. Either way, the grouping of the students apart from one another according to their abilities is the form of tracking. There are many questions that we could ask about how reliable the tests are that place students into different tracks where they could remain for the 12 schooling year career. What influence does the grouping have on their later education opportunities? What do the assessments consist of for the placement decisions, or how accurate are these assessments? One of the main arguments made about tracking is if it allows equal opportunity for an entire student population to take a desired course. Others say that placing of the students into their own ability groups is an important obligation of schooling. While there are still others that believe that teachers' instructional skills and manner of delivery play an important role in the students' achievement. Burris and Garrity told students and parents for a long time it is possible for students to move at a higher track throughout their schooling careers. After examining transcripts of 2 students who were placed at a middle ability track, they found that they did not move up the track. In fact, they declined, which is common for students who were placed in the middle track. Grades often fail to improve even though the curriculum stays the same. Tracking doesn't seem too bad when we think about it being used in elementary schools. The students are separated into teams with team names like the Zebras or the Wildcats. They then follow steps to help them become better students and raise their test scores. After all, the purpose of elementary is to prepare the students to the best of their ability for upcoming grades and learning. These methods are mostly used in math and reading. Then as the students move through the education, the students are stuck with the labels they were given in elementary school. For those of the lower tracks, they are steadily force-fed lower expectations, which leads to a lower level of motivation towards school, according to the NEA. Tracking remains the most widely used method in the education system used today. Our teachers expected to lump all the students and their diversities into the same classroom and have the same connect to what she's teaching. For example, imagine an LA teacher has the low ability students and the high ability students all together in the same classroom. This teacher is expected to prepare the high ability students for the advanced placement test, while she also has to help the low ability students correct their basic grammar. As we can all imagine, this would be a difficult task for that teacher to follow through on successfully, and a difficult task for the students to achieve as well. Our group has discussed this topic of tracking for the good and the bad that has to come with it. We came to the conclusion that tracking could be beneficial in more ways than just one. For example, the low ability students may feel more comfortable with students that they can relate to academically, which could also raise their self-esteem and motivation to do better. Another advantage for tracking would be for teachers. Curriculum would be targeted towards the desired audience, which allows the classroom to adjust well and the pace of work flows smoother. Another point that was made in our group discussion was that no tracking could be detrimental to the classroom population. No tracking could cause the low ability students to be left behind or lost if the teacher is teaching for the general population. Therefore, they may get discouraged. Same goes for high ability students. If a teacher is teaching to the general population, the high ability students may lose interest because they don't feel challenged. They may not be working to their highest abilities. This could cause a gap between the high and low students. No tracking could lead to segregation of the classroom with an increase of both racial and socioeconomic lines, according to Bayer. If, on the other hand, though, no tracking would mean no segregation through the school system. Every student would be equal and each taught and treated fairly, in which they deserve by their teachers and their peers. It is no secret that tracking is one of the most controversial topics in education today. The information was endless over this topic. We predict that it will continue to be a widespread issue in years to come until somehow, some way, the advocates for and against tracking can meet in the middle and mold a plan for future students in